So welcome back. While I wait for some bits to turn up, we've been working on the lining for the pom-pom and working on trying to get it right. I've had a just show you a sample I got sent by PDF. I printed it out, offered it up, and it's just fallen off. So I'll try and remember to put a picture in here that I took. It's almost there. It's just an awkward shaped curve. So in the meantime, I'm looking for something else to do. So starting on running repairs, or rather non-running repairs, since it's not working at the moment. Let's take a look at what's up. So as you can see, it's the Duke of York, and last time out it was sounding particularly rough. And I've discovered a bit of play here. But because it's 3-cylinder with the gradually conjugated valve gear, that play is multiplied onto the centre cylinder as well as the outside. So you've got 2 cylinders running rough. But why is it running rough? When you take a look, I don't know how well you can see that, but the actual expansion link is broken. So the die block is running in an extended size expansion link effectively. So it's going to be a job of getting that off and then starting to take a look at what I can do with it. I've got an idea, a bit of a plan. We'll see if that pulls off, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But for the moment, I am a little bit grumpy. As it happens, the expansion link this side, that pin coming out the centre has come out. So if I'm doing something with the other one, I'll get that out, and then I'll take this one apart and I'll do something better with that. So my first reaction had been take the running board off, then take the motion bracket front edge off, but it looks like it's 3 bolts, and to get that running plate off is a bit of a pig, to say the least, because it's cab off. And yeah, so I'm just going to try and dismantle the expansion link in situ. As you can see, it's going quite well so far, but you can see where the problem is. So I will note the bottom bolts, top ones were countersunk on the outside with nuts on the inside. The bottom ones were the opposite way round, presumably because of that clearance to the conrod. So when it goes back together, I might see about tapping the back part of the expansion link. So if that one was tapped and this one's clearance, then they can all be countersunk bolts from this side and it'll all be good. So let's finish taking this apart. So there we have it. And like I thought, these bits of the expansion link did manage to come out once the centre of the expansion link was out. So the next thing for me to do, you can see the centrepiece properly, well and truly broken. So my first thought was get a set made, or make a set. I'd probably get a set wire eroded these days. But then my second thought, which my father mentioned to me, that he once started a Flying Scotsman, he's moved on to something bigger and better. But he believes he might have some expansion links for it. Now, this started life as a Scotsman. I believe it was a Clarkson Scotsman. Slide valve, but then he extended it by an extra axle to become the proposed 482. Excuse me, I'm just kicking a bit of metal on the floor. So it's Gresley's proposed 482, but then a bit over scale, very Clarkson-y. So I am looking at the dad's Scotsman. He was building to the Don Young drawings. So my next thing will be to look at whether the Don Young expansion link matches the Clarkson expansion link. If it does, then I might well be able to pinch them. If not, then I'll be looking at making some new or speaking to someone to get some made. So watch this space. So I went round and saw Dad after the club yesterday, and we'd had a bit of a dig and we dug out expansion links for Doncaster. Let's take a look. Now these were bought some time ago, and it said on there that they are water jet cut from gauge plate. The block and the links are 20 thou oversize to be cleaned up, but there weren't any die blocks in here, so it's just the expansion links. Now the geometry looks the same radius. That offset seems a little bit more. However, I think we can live with that. We'll give it a try anyway. The side sheets for it are somewhat thinner, but that's not too bad. In fact, the whole thing looks a little less chunky, to be honest. My engine is built fairly chunky. I'm hoping they don't look too silly when they're on there. We will give it a try though. We will make the spacers to suit. We could even make stepped pins on there, or I might just turn sleeves that go around the outside to space them out. But yeah, we'll give it a go. I need to make the spacers that go in between anyway. The only worry I've got is the thickness, the width of that slot. Although it's the same radius as this one, the slot's narrower where it's a bit more to scale. So I need to get this die block out, which in fact I may be able to save. So that die block needs to come out and then be fitted to this slot once the slot's been cleaned up, and I need to hope that this slot is wider than the pin through the die block. If not, then I may have to bush the rod to take a smaller pin. So pin and die block removed. As you can see, it's a touch big for the slot, but I'm going to clean up the slot and then I might be able to reduce this die block in size to meet this and reuse that die block, which would be a bonus. So I've been filing the die block down, sort of polished the inside and outside, and to try and see, it's very difficult with one hand, but to see if it fits. Doesn't seem to be fitting there. Or maybe it could be that that's not square. So yeah, so we push that in and see where it goes tight, and then we can look at the witness marks to see where the high spots are, and then just gradually ease them until such times as it fits. But the fact that it fitted from one side and not the other makes me think that where that was cut, it's not quite square. So I'll polish that up a bit more to try and square that up. So I don't know if it's the best method, but I've got it here and I'm Just rubbing it up and down a few times, and then I can see the high spots. So then I'll just work at taking those high spots away, both on the die block and on the insides of the link, and then hopefully we'll get to a stage where it's a nice free movement. So to take the high spots out the inside of the expansion link, I've got a file and some emery paper, emery cloth, and I'm just very gently, just a little bit at a time, just taking away where those high spots are. It's a half round file, which on this side of the curve doesn't really matter. But once you spin it over to the concave side, sorry, it does. Those polished lines are gone. I'll do the same with the die block and then we'll try again. And now I've given it a spray with WD-40 and I can move it quite happily with my fingers from one end to the other. It stays wherever it's put, so it's going to be possibly a touch tight to begin with, but I think we'll be alright. So just to fit the rest of the expansion link. So I have skipped a couple of steps. I wasn't certain if it was going to work, but here we go. It's still not finished, but let's have a little talk. But I have got to this stage as one complete lump. Now, the spacers in between, I have actually soldered to the outer plates. And when I make the trunnion pins, although I will make them a good fit in this, I will also silver solder them in place as well. So I soldered a bit of metal onto the expansion link outer plate. If I end up doing the other side before I post this video, then I will show it here. But I soldered a bit of metal to the outer plate. I then cut that down, filed it to shape. I wish I had left it a little bit oversized and then filed it all as one when I'd finished. Then using the spotted from the laser cut, the spotted holes, I used them to drill. On the outer plate, I drilled a clearance size. I opened up the middle piece to clearance, and I drilled a tapping size in the back plate, and then I tapped them for 8BA. And that's where we're at. So I've just bolted it together. Oh, and I countersunk the top plate as well, the outer plate. So now, bolted up, the screw heads, the screws do not come through, and they don't protrude on the outside either. So I won't have the problem of it having to be the right way around in order to avoid collisions with rods in different places. So onto the bearing pins. So I've offered it all up into place so that I can measure just how long the trunnion pins need to be. Do them one at a time and then gradually put it together. So where these links were water jet cut, leaves a slight angle on the cut. So I drilled out that hole so it would be parallel and then bushed it. So then that was ready. I went and fitted it, and the link on the inside, the holes didn't line up. I was like, why didn't they line up? Because I hadn't actually noticed the pin is not central. So when you get them both in the same orientation, or so that they'll be the matched pair, like that, one is a fair distance out from the other. So it wasn't the end of the world. It was, I looked at the drawings for Doncaster, which is what these links are from, and the larger side should be at the bottom. So that should be that way round on this link. So I already had this one correct, but this inside one was the wrong way up. So I went to the other pair and I've made the other one. So it won't go to waste because that will be good for the other side of the engine, because I am going to replace both. So now I can go and put this together. And there we are, fully assembled. I do just have a couple of split pins to put in the back of those two pins. However, everything else is done. I may take the cylinder cover off, or valve chest cover off rather, and just check the timing visually on this cylinder. Then I'll do the same the other side, and hopefully it should all tie up. But I will need to just check it on air to make sure the centre cylinder is working right as well. So now we're on the left hand side. Obviously that piece had already been made, but wrong for the right hand side, so it was good for the left. That's still got a little bit of warmth in it, but that's just needs cleaning up. That's the other side. That's been drilled. All 5 holes have been re-drilled to clean them up. So it's ready to go together. It just wants a bush putting in this end and the slot squaring up, and then the old die block removing from there and putting into this. As it happens, it's a very polished area here, outside and in, and it gets very tight in that area. See how polished that is? So that shows it was a bit too tight before anyway. And it gets tight at the very top of the slot. So that might have been a cause of tightness in the reverser, cause of tightness in general. But yes, we are going to take that apart, die block out, square up this slot, then reduce the size of that die block to fit in here. So, see you in a moment. So before I start on it, Just wanted to show you the sort of surface finish, and I don't know if you can see how out of square it is, but it is out of square. So we'll give this a file up, sort out all the inside edges, clean up the outside edges as well, and then we'll be ready to adjust the die block to suit. So I've had a slight problem. This side went in okay, but when I went to do the inner side, that bearing on the inside, I've already taken it out, I just put it back in to show you where it was, is actually a smaller diameter than the one on the outside. So that's a pig. I've come up with a couple of ideas. I could either grip that whole thing in the collet chuck, drill it, silver solder a pin on the inside, then I can hold that pin while I turn down the outside of this, or I'll just get it hot, knock it out and return it, clean it all up and put it all back in. And I think that's probably the easier way, to be honest. So there we have it. The second side is all assembled, although I haven't set this in a position yet, because until I've got enough track to roll it up, which at the moment it hasn't got, I need to be able to turn the wheels the whole way round to know what angle it needs to be at. So yes, that's it for now. It is all assembled, ready to try. So that is where we're going to leave it for today. I'm cold, you can just about see my breath in the air. That's a sign for me to go in. The other side of the workshop is a touch warmer, so we're going to go back out here. There's a heater out here, and being a little bit smaller, only insulated to a certain extent, I only really want to heat this bit. So yes, I need to raise the engine up in the air, get the airline onto it and try it on air. That's the next step. If it doesn't work, if the timing's ridiculous, then we'll start taking the running boards off again and adjust the valves position by eye. I will run it with the drain cocks open first to make sure the operation is happening at the right time before I go to that stage. If it's not, then obviously I'll have to move the valve on the arm. So enough rambling. That's where we're at, and I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. Hope it's been of interest. Always so grateful for everyone who watches, likes, shares, comments, whatever. Anything you'd have done differently, anything you think I didn't show in enough detail, just let me know. So that's enough for me. I will catch up with you next time, where we'll be giving the Duke a bit of a test on air. Thanks very much. Speak to you soon.